Well, welcome to the inaugural morning coffee here at the Dark Underbelly. We are going to enjoy some Don't Tread on Me coffee with a beautiful American flag. We are promoting the public, as this is a public service channel for all of our viewers. We are going to go over here at the Dark Underbelly. Well, let me drink some of the coffee. Actually drink the coffee, not pretend like there's coffee in here. Anyway, the first case, our inaugural case storyline, is going to be a sentencing that occurred in February of this year in Seminole County, Florida. Let me introduce you to Richard Colon. Richard Colon was a high school teacher in Seminole County, and he had engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a 17-year-old student. Some of this relationship misconduct occurred in his classroom. Not a good guy, pretty nasty guy. He was sentenced in February, where the plea agreement did not arrange for a specific amount of years in prison or probation. The investigation began in October of 2024. Richard stayed in jail for over a year and a half while waiting the proceedings as they played out. He was given no bond, or it was a very, very high bond, and he remained during the proceedings, his criminal case, in jail, and eventually came to an agreement for a plea in February. It was all over the news. Everyone knew about old Richard. The news were there in the courtroom for sentencing. So a judge sentenced him to 27 years in the Florida state prison system, and he will obviously be a registered sex offender for the rest of his life. He was in shackles, he was in a jail outfit, and all the media captured it. This story was around Central Florida and the country within minutes, reporting that this creepy, perverted teacher, this male teacher, had committed these crimes and was sentenced accordingly to 27 years in prison. There goes Richard. And he went to jail. But little did anybody know that on the same day, in the same courthouse, for the same exact crime, there were no cameras. There was no media. There was no drive-by media that announces an arrest, and you can never know what the result is. In that courtroom was a case that we covered exclusively in a 4-part series, and that was Zulariam Fernandez. That's right, just a couple courtrooms down on the same day for the same crime. Zulariam was sentenced, but her sentence looked a lot different. Her proceeding took a lot longer. As you know, if you saw our 4-part series on Zulariam, where we covered the bodycam footage of the victim and the victim's family.
He was over there for like 3 days straight,
right,
hanging out, and I just figured, okay, it's school vacation, they're hanging out with the friends. He stayed over there last night, but then he was home in the morning. But like I said, I mean, he has a friend that's the same age.
Mm-hmm. Think about it.
I think, yeah, I mean, I would never, like, a grown woman,
Yeah.
Never have thought in a million years that this is going on.
Yeah.
Discussing when police arrived, the case, and then we got audio of the Zulariam's son and friend who talked about her behavior.
I told her his age.
When it
happened.
Okay, so right away, like when he started coming over, or was it later, like weeks?
The first day he came over and she kissed him on the cheek, I told her his age, and she took that and didn't care. She continued on. Yeah.
It's just
He's just saying, okay, so they're saying blicky, they're not saying anything.
Yes,
okay.
when are you going to get me the blicky? Are you going to get me the blicky today? And her just confirming, like, yes, give me time. Let me get this person to give me the money.
Okay.
So they basically sugar mamas tricking off on these 2 little boys.
Okay.
That's going to put them in jail or get them killed, because now y'all buying them weapons because y'all stuck and old. Bring her down too. That's disgusting. I'm aggravated hearing this nonsense.
And then we got the audio of Zulariam, who denied everything for most of the interview until investigators confronted her with the fact that they had video which was qualified as CSAM, of her and the victim engaged in sex acts. And then she changed her tune, started crying even more, and ended the interview.
There's a video of you giving him head. So you're giving him oral sex. Which is why I'm trying to get you to cooperate with me, Zulariam. And you keep saying nothing's happening. But obviously I have other information.
I don't know about a video.
She was released in one day. She was given a bond. And she was out in one day to spend the next 2 years defending her case and defending herself. Whereas Richard had to get visits from his attorneys in jail for a year and a half to defend his case. There was no meetings weekly or emails that he could send with his attorneys. Zulariam got released on bond, spent 2 years dragging the case out, and she was sentenced on the same day in the same courthouse for illegal misconduct with a 17-year-old. If you watched our story and series that we put out, you'll remember that she was living in an apartment, basically a flop house, and she invited a number of people, very young people, to live in the apartment, including the victim. Her son, Zulariam's son, warned her basically on the day she met the victim that he was underage. She completely ignored it. She had the victim driving her all over town for her work, and she supplied the victim with drugs, alcohol, and the victim slept in for months, slept in the same room as Zulariam, all while she was denying there was any inappropriate activities while crying at the same time. She threw her roommate under the bus, Ms. Zulariam did, by saying that, oh my gosh, I know why I'm getting in trouble. It's because the other girl that lives with me, adult female, is sexually abusing a 16-year-old boy that lives with us. I didn't say anything before, but now that I'm under the microscope for an illegal relationship with a 17-year-old boy, I'm going to point out the cabal that we've got in here, a little mini Epstein Island going on, a Mrs. Epstein Island, I guess you could say, in this apartment in Seminole County. So she points out the fact that one of her roommates is engaged also in an inappropriate relationship with a boy. She was never charged, the roommate was, but Zulariam was confronted with pictures and videos of the misconduct, and it took 2 years. She dragged this thing out 2 years, and it's very likely that, unlike the case of our buddy here, Richard Colon, whose victim was very cooperative, whose victim disclosed all of the truth of the matter, all of her perspectives of what happened, the relationship, turned over voluntarily her cell phone, digital devices. The case was rather, it was easier because the victim was very cooperative. Not in the case of Zulariam, the victim was uncooperative. If you remember the body cam video that we produced, the victim arrives home, tries to take the cell phone away from his father, who was giving it to the investigators. He lied and said that there was no abuse going on, and did a number of deflections for and shielding for Zulariam. This is the common theme we see here with male victims in particular, when the perpetrator, the predator, the abuser is an adult woman. They will lie, they will shield, and even in the case of Misty Roberts, telling us that we lie until we die. That is the mentality. Good old Zulariam, she drags this sucker out and gets a plea deal on the same day as Richard, but she's sentenced to not prison, not even jail, not even an additional 1 day in jail. She even got better deal than the Epstein. He got 1 year sort of house arrest in a jail while he could work commute to jail. Zulariam got 5 years probation. 5 years probation for a crime. It's very likely because the victim was a no-show or was very unhelpful or uncooperative. And not only did she, have sex with this juvenile male, but she bought him, like we said, drugs, alcohol. She even attempted to get the juvenile male a blicky. He wanted a blicky. Give me a blicky. And she tried to get him a blicky. which is slang for a gun, a firearm, which I guess she was going to try to ghost gun it or straw buyer it. But she definitely supplied him with plenty of her drugs she was getting, including the medical marijuana that she got, delving it out to all these people, many of whom underage. There was a young child in this house, a baby, a toddler, living in this environment in which an adult woman is alleged to have been sleeping with a 16-year-old while Zulariam was sleeping with a 17-year-old, molesting, abusing, having unlawful sex, committing unlawful sex acts with. There's a toddler in the home as well. So she's sentenced to 5 years probation on the same day in the same county as for the same crime as Richard Colon, who was sentenced to 27 years in prison. Now, of course, we're not saying that you go easy on Richard Colon. No. We're saying that the law should be applied equally between Richard and Zulariam, particularly if we're in the same county. We can't say that there's different state laws. It's in the same state. We can't say that one judge is easier than another. It's in the same county. Basically, nearly almost adjacent to the same courtroom. Zulariam gets a very, very good deal. Richard will be spending the most of the rest of his life, if he remains among the living, in prison. So that's the disparity in sentencing that we examine here on this channel, in which you had the same aged victim, a 17-year-old female, was abused by an adult male teacher. He's away for 27 years in prison. We've got a 17-year-old male victim who's abused by an adult female. She's got probation, and there were no cameras in there to tell you about it. There was no cameras to examine all of the messages and videos that were exchanged. The lengthy, months-long relationship. If you remember, too, if you go back to our series, the mother of the victim said this child was having some problems in school. He was getting help. He was getting off drugs. He was improving his life, going back to school and getting an education. And then he met our friend Zulariam, and it all fell apart then. And then he begins a deflection campaign and a lying campaign. I guess not only do the female preds lie until you die, but the male victims lie until they die as well. So that's it. Thanks for joining us here at the Dark Underbelly for our morning coffee, our inaugural morning coffee. We're glad you came. There's going to be a lot more morning coffees here where we cover real nasty criminals who are committing very bad crimes, not just putting out salacious content to fill up your social media page so millions and millions of commenters can laugh and harass and everything else that you on the internet. Come back for more.